So the great thing about the first Gravity event was that I discovered the Nutrition Hub. And I don't remember the flavor I got, but it was fantastic there. So I got a free shake, and those things are like $13 a piece too. So it was a really, really good deal. No, they're not that much, but they are worth it if you haven't gone. My name's Bob Willumsen. I am going to talk about relationships today, and I thought when we talk about leadership a lot, what does that mean? What is a way that we can add value to our leadership and our entrepreneurial lives, but also get ready for the holidays? Because we're going somewhere, right? Or someone's coming to our home. We're going to have to deal with some tough personalities. Who's the uncle? Is it the uncle? Maybe it's your parents. I don't know. I don't know who it is. Everyone, right? For Thanksgiving, I spent 4 days in St. Louis with my parents. I love my parents. 4 days is too long, right? 4 days is too long to be under the house. So we're going to talk about some relationships today, and I'm going to talk about some skills to help you improve every relationship. I moved here in 2004, and I was a hospital executive. And so St. Francis Hospital Bartlett, anybody ever been out there? So I had this unique opportunity to open a hospital. I was working for Tenet Healthcare, and I moved to St. Francis Bartlett and was the chief operating officer there from 2004 until 2007. So we got to open a hospital. It was a lot of fun. There's a lot of good energy that can come from that. When you go from zero, right, that first year, you're like, yay, 100% growth, hey, 200%, right? It's really good. We all know that year 4 is when it matters, right? But it was a journey, and it was fun, and I was a young, energetic administrator, and I earned a lot of favor with a lot of physicians and a lot of staff. And then one day, my assistant came in. I was sitting in my nice leather chair on my nice cherry wood desk. I really thought that made me important. And my assistant came in, and she was visibly agitated, shaking, like trembling, and she sat down, and she said, "You are a critical a-hole, and I can't stand you." So I fired her. Boom, done, out. I didn't actually fire her. I really didn't fire her. But I did take note that something was wrong. Something wasn't working exactly. So I went and talked to a couple of people, and I said, "Hey, this is what happened." And they said, "Well, you did need to be talking to her about that. You're okay." Well, I got called out to do some mission-driven nonprofit work after that, and I had another assistant in my new organization. And several years later, she came one day, and I recognized that look on her face. That visibly agitated, you are a critical jerk. Now, the difference this time between critical a-hole and critical jerk was we worked at a faith-based nonprofit, so she was more refined, right? But the message was the same. What is wrong with all these people, right? Like they don't get. I keep telling. Potential to result. I keep telling them how I can get them up to their potential. I'm trying to help them, and they think I'm critical. Then I got married. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. And about 6 months in, my wife comes to me. I'm not going to finish the story. We had some issues. I was a critical jerk. I was mean. I got a 12-year-old daughter overnight. As if it wasn't enough to break into this Gilmore Girl thing that they had going, right, where my wife had raised a 12-year-old. And all of a sudden, I have 2 more women who really don't like me because I try to help them too much. I just try to get them right up to their potential. Can anyone relate? Who can relate to me? Anybody? Brave enough? Okay. Who can relate to them? Anybody? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, okay. Great. Here's what I didn't know at the time that I learned through extensive therapy to try to save my marriage, is that my entire view of the world was through judgment. I just judged. I had my ideas of the way it should look. I had the ideas of the way you should think, Daniel. I had the ideas of the way you should produce the spreadsheet. And if you didn't do it the way I thought was right, my default response was to simply judge what you've done. And that's how I lived my life. But I felt so right. And often I even got validated by peers and other leaders that I actually was right in what I was doing. But what I realized was I was right, but I was wrong in my approach. There's this ancient philosopher, his name's Solomon. Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, all these guys who have all this wealth. This was like, the Bezos of the day. And in ancient Israel, Solomon said, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but in airing his opinion. Let me read that again. A fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but in airing his opinion. And that wisdom changed my life, because here's what I realized. It didn't matter if the fool was right or not. A fool can be right and still be a fool if they don't seek understanding. And so we talk about relationships, right? And we talk about how this works. I want to give an example here. Noel, Noel has a career, a hidden past in modeling, so I'm sorry, Noel. That was private in our conversations? No. But it's obvious, right? So let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about this. I told you I viewed the world through judgment. What's in my hula hoop? Me. My worldview, my life experiences, all the things that have happened to me, the things that have made me the way I am, my gifting, my personality, all of these things are in this hula hoop. All of those same things are in Noel. He has a modeling background. I don't, right? So we're very different. But all the things, his gifting, his personality, and all this stuff. But we have a relationship. And where we have a relationship, there's an overlap space. Our worlds collide in this space. This is where we have a relationship. And let me tell you what happened in every one of mine, and it's probably happening in some of yours, is I put judgment in here. Doesn't measure up to the way I would do it? Judge. What happens when I put judgment into this overlap space? Noel eventually just pulls away. And the amount of connection, right? This space here, this is connection. We want connection in relationships. So when I put good things into this space, I get more connection. When I put bad things into this space, I get less connection. Judgment doesn't work. And so when that person has pulled away after I judge, now that I don't have a lot of space to put it into, what do? I just sit back and judge the whole thing that he's doing. And judge that, and now I'm stuck. And Noel has that happen until he ends up in my office in front of me saying, I hate you, and you're something after that. Thank you, Noel. Thank you. Yeah. Thank Noel for this. No, I'm going to keep him. I'm going to keep him. Right? So here's the thing. The problem is judgment. Whether you're me or whether you're my assistant, the problem is judgment. Here's how I know. Because even though I judge out loud, my assistant was judging internally, wasn't she? She was internalizing all the things that she wouldn't say until it just came out in the form of vomit, until it just exploded out of her, right? So here's the thing. We were both putting judgment into this space. I was judging her performance, and she was judging how I was treating her. So we both put judgment in here, and the connection diminishes. What I want to talk about right now is what you can put in here to increase the connection in all your relationships. Some of you, if you're married, that's where this is striking you. That's where this is hitting you if you're married. But it can also hit you at work. It can hit you with your kids. So what do you put in here? What are the things to put in this space to increase the connection? I'm going to give you 3 things. We don't put judgment in there. We put 3 things in there. The first one is care. 3 C's. The first one's care. You have to put care into that space. You have to put intentional care into the overlap space so that it can grow. It is impossible to understand somebody if you don't care about them as a person. We are human beings, not human doings. We are human beings, not human doings. But what happens is when I don't think about that intentionally, all I think about is what the other person's doing and whether or not they're doing it my way or whether or not they're meeting my needs. But if I can understand that they're a human being, I can change my perspective just a little bit. A tweak in perspective creates massive change in result. That's a subtle tweak. So how do you care for somebody? Here's your takeaway. Study them. Just study them. Observe them. What motivates them? If you want to know if you have connection with your team, you will know what excites them and what stresses them at the same time. You'll know those things. You'll observe them. You'll observe what makes them tick. You'll study them, and then you'll be able to care for them and meet them where they are instead of just as the result that they can give you. So the second C that you need to put in there, the first one is care, is curiosity. You have to put curiosity in there. It is impossible to understand somebody if you're not curious. There's been a lot of psychological work done to show the value. If you can let curiosity be your guide instead of judgment, that your life can really change. You have to get really curious. You have to get curious to understand what they're doing. Right? Instead of saying, why would you do it that way? Say, why would they do it that way? Internalize that. Get curious. Seek understanding. Here's how you do it. This is going to change your holiday right here. This thing here. At the point of your first conclusion of judgment. That's not how I would do it. Why is he such a jerk? Why does she overreact? All these things. At the point of your first point of judgment, ask 3 curiosity-driven questions further. Ask 3 curiosity-driven questions further. Let me give you an example. My wife comes home, and she's all upset, and she tells me what she's upset about. And I think, well, you're kind of overreacting. That's silly. That's not really a big deal. Anybody? Some people are smiling. Anybody just, what did I just do to her? I judged her feelings. I judged her. I said, when I look at the scales, I'm judging that what you're feeling, that's just not that important. She pulls away. Less connection. Here's the alternative. Hey, I got left out of the meeting. Feels kind of weird. I'm kind of upset. Oh, I'm about to judge. Click. Tell me more about that. Tell me about that. What was going on? Was anybody else left out? How did that make you feel? What did you I'm curious, and she's talking and she's responding, and now she's feeling that I'm interested in her. She's feeling care, and I'm seeking to understand her. And then in the end she goes, you know what? Now that we talk about it, I'm probably just making a big deal out of nothing. How much better is that? Than me coming home and telling her she's making a big deal out of nothing and ruining the night, versus coming home and investing in her and listening to her and just being curious about where she's coming from. And asking the follow-up questions, and her coming to that conclusion and her feeling supported. So we put care in there, and we put curiosity in there. And the last thing we really need to put in there is clarity. Clarity. What's clarity? Ambiguity creates all sorts of problems. So do assumptions. We all know what they say about assumptions. Ambiguity and assumptions create problems. Here's how. Because when we see things a certain way, we all think we're neutral. We think we're the center of the universe. We think the way we see it is the right way. And therefore, when somebody else doesn't see it our way, what are they? They're off. They're left or right. They're off. If we're not intentional to understand how different we all see things, what we will do is we will give a vague set of instructions and expect them to do it the way we would do it according to our perspective and our view. And when they don't, they come back with something that's different. What do? We judge them. Why would you do it that way? And that's what I did to every assistant I had. Why don't you just get it? Why is it intuitive? Because I didn't make it clear. Because I didn't make it clear. Our assumptions will kill you. So your takeaway there, and to create clarity, is to challenge your assumptions. Just because somebody doesn't do it the way you think they should does not mean they're lazy. It doesn't. It doesn't mean they're disrespectful. It doesn't mean that. They just can't read your mind because you haven't made it clear. Listen, just because somebody doesn't treat you the way you wish they should doesn't make them mean. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It just means you haven't put enough clarity into that overlap space of your hula hoop to help them understand your expectation and how you want to be treated. It doesn't. So to just kind of review, we don't want to judge. So think about it right now. Think about someone at work that you're either judging silently or behind their back to the other person, or that you're judging openly. And how can you start to put care in there, which is study them to understand what's going on and understand they're a human being, not a human doing? How can you put curiosity in there? How can you ask 3 curiosity-driven questions past the point of your initial judgment or conclusion? And 3, how can you put clarity in there? How can you clarify where you are so they know how to come to it or not? There's going to be someone at your Christmas party that you're going to have to get curious about too, right? These things happen. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to close it with this. Sometimes I'm afraid that if I don't manage somebody else's hula hoop for them, that they're not going to do it. You ever feel that way? It happens with parenting a lot. Let me tell you a quick story, and then we're done. We have time for questions, I think. My daughter, it was at this therapy session. We went for the week-long version. We needed a lot of help. And my daughter wasn't doing as well in school. She was my new stepdaughter of 6 months at this time. So I would come home and I would just manage how she did things. You can't work for that amount of time and get these grades. Why aren't you doing that? Like, I literally would micromanage and tell her every move she needed to make in order to get the results she needed to get. And she pulled away. I had no relationship whatsoever. Well, then what happens? This 90-something-year-old marriage counselor, he's still alive. He's deep in his hundreds now, literally. And he says, Bill, my name's Bob, by the way. He was really old, but he's told me some good things. He goes, you go home and you tell that young lady exactly what I'm going to tell you, because it's going to work. So I'm going to tell you what I did. I went home, I said, Ashley, I want to apologize to you. You're going into your sophomore year of high school, and I want to apologize because I have tried to manage your entire life, your entire education. I have made the assumption that if I don't manage it for you, that you're not going to manage it. And I want you to forgive me. I want to apologize to you because I believe that you are the type of person that left to succeed or fail, that you will succeed indeed. And she looked at me like, who are you? And I didn't. I stopped managing it. Now, there were consequences attached to grades. A car, the power of a car is something really good, right? So she looked at me, and guess what happened after that? Guess what happened to her grades? They dropped. But then she ended up years later graduating with almost a 4.0. They've done research as to what the most meaningful predictor of success for a student in a classroom is, and it's the level of belief the teacher has in the student. It is amazing what somebody will do when you believe in them to carry the weight of their life. And when you come alongside them and say, I will support you through this. So maybe you need to believe in somebody in a new way. Maybe you need to be intentional to put care, curiosity, or clarity in a new way. And maybe you need to start keying yourself in to when you're judging, because it's not going to get you there. You can't judge somebody to where you want them to be. Thank you.